Spanish is a language descended from Latin with over 500 million speakers today, along with being one of the most popular to learn as a result of its number of speakers, growing economic potential, and similarity to English. Despite being a Germanic language, English has been influenced by Latinate languages to the point where over half its vocabulary originates from them. For many of these words, it's easy to see their connection to their Spanish counterparts, or cognates, such as with favorite and favorito, or television and televisión. For others, not so much. I started taking Spanish, a mandatory school subject, at the age of 12. I dreaded having to go over the basic phrases like hola, buenos dias, and encantado endlessly. Memorizing each word was a bore and felt like a waste of time. So much to the point that I switched over to Latin while a high school freshman. Although I didn't continue with the language, Latin proved to be a good foundation for Spanish, sharing many words with not only it, but also with English. This helped me improve my Spanish that same year, and the subtle connections between words got me back into it. Now I aim to show others and help them make the same connections, so that they can improve the vocabulary as I did. Let's get started. Before we dive into words, we need to be aware of certain sound changes that occur between Latin and French and Spanish to better identify them. We'll start off with the source, Latin. Words from Latin and English often pertain to science, technology, flora, fauna, and borrowed phrases. Furthermore, many common English words have more formal counterparts from Latin. Take dog and canine, cat and feline, reading and literature. These more formal Latinate words often pass on to Spanish and are cognates. Many of the words already seen end with M, a common case ending in Latin. Take panem, the accusative of panis, from the phrase panem et circenses, or bread and circuses. Oftentimes, taking away the M or EM, like here, gets you to the Spanish word, or in this case, pan. This especially applies to adjectives that are cognates of their English counterparts. The accusative of important in Latin is importantem. Remove the M and you get the Spanish importante. Further remove the E and we get the familiar important. The same goes for decantem, decante in Spanish, and decant in English. One exception to this rule is the nominative singular. Many are directly borrowed from Latin, and the Spanish counterparts have few, if any, modifications. Just change that to O. Coliseum becomes coliseo, condominium is condominio, emporium, emporio, forum, foro. US endings work the same way, becoming O in Spanish. Words like circus, chorus, modus, nexus become circo, coro, modo, and nixo. A more peculiar sound change that happened was the initial F in Latin becoming H in Spanish due to Basque influence. Words that pass from Latin and or French into English may start with an F, but have an initial H in Spanish, which was once pronounced but is now silent. Another less expected shift is L to J. Alien, as an adjective, is ajeno. Fennel is hinojo. Vallis is valija. L, when in a cluster, such as pl, fl, cl, often becomes y or j in Spanish, such as plain and llano, flame and llama, clef and llave. The word clef actually comes from French, which leads us into our next topic. Roughly 30% of English vocabulary comes from French. Much of this is from when the Normans took over England, gaining positions of power. As a result, many French words in English are related to noble titles, fine dining, and manners, along with many common words. A lot of French words in English have Spanish cognates hidden behind simple sound changes. One of the most notable examples is words that end in o or a, ending in a silent e in their French/English forms. Such words include note and nota, plate and plato, cream and crema. Another difference is words starting with ch, pronounced ch or sh, in English's counterpart starting with k in Spanish. Examples of this include champion and campeón, chateau and castillo, chart and carta. Some suffixes influenced by French have similar yet different versions in Spanish. Examples of these include tia/iti being dad/idad, sion as sion, ive as ivo/iva, ist as ista, os as oso/osa, and eight as ar. Other sound changes date back further than French or Latin. These come from a proto-language known as Proto-Indo-European, spoken some 6,000 years ago, and eventually split into various languages spoken today, such as English, Spanish, French, German, Hindi, Greek, and more. H in Germanic languages, of which English is a part, often corresponds to C in Romance languages, such as house and casa, hundred and ciento, horn and cuerno. Another far-fetched change is past participles similarity. Past participles mostly end in ado, edo, or ido in Spanish, and in ed in English, which look rather similar as is. Take a cognate verb such as prefer or preferir, and you get preferred and preferido as the participles. Now that we're aware of sound changes, we can start looking at Spanish words and their cognates. Many are rather obvious, especially when we get to scientific and academic words, as both were often borrowed directly from Latin or ancient Greek. Other obvious cognates include those related to technology, like telephone and telefono, computer and computadora, calculator and calculadora. The English words often directly inspired the Spanish words, and as a result, they're similar. There were also cases in which the opposite occurred. Cucaracha inspired cockroach. Café comes from the Spanish cafeteria or coffee shop. Cowboy took influence from the Spanish vaquero, related to vaca, the word for cow. Of course, many English words directly come from Spanish, such as patio, plaza, tango, rumba, guerrilla, cargo, embargo, and more. Likewise, many English words have found themselves in Spanish, such as picnic, closet, golf, basketball, campus, hamburguesa, supermercado, amongst others. Borrowed words are bound to be similar, but what about related words with different meanings? Some have similar enough meanings, even if not exact, such as cosecha and collect, as one has to collect the harvest. Then there's pincel and pencil. Both are tools meant for the desired medium. We also have amigo and amicable, as to be amicable is to be friendly. Given that these relations are not so obvious, how is one supposed to find the connections? Well, just like about everything else nowadays, the internet. Lucky for us, there are many websites and resources out there dedicated to etymologies or the origins of words, which help us make such connections. If we take a word from Spanish, preferably one that doesn't have an obvious English cognate, like hongo, we can use some of the techniques we've learned to get to its root. H often becomes F thanks to Basque, so we get fongo. O at the end may correspond to E, but what's a fonge? We may also change it to but fongum isn't quite there. However, if we change it to us, we get fungus, which sounds and looks very similar to fungus, or a scientific name for mushroom. Indeed, ongo means mushroom. But what if you don't know what fungus means, or if the word doesn't have such a smooth transition to its original form? As mentioned earlier, the internet provides us with many of these resources, which we'll be utilizing for less obvious words. Let's go to a random site, in this case, La Nación, an Argentine newspaper. I'm going to click on a random article and search through it briefly to find a word that is not an immediate cognate. We'll use the word cancha. I'm not even sure what it means, to be honest. Wiktionary is a great resource that has hundreds of thousands of words in multiple languages, and their etymology is available for free. It's the best to use in English, as it has the most information available, even more than in other languages. We just type the word in and click Spanish. That pops up on the side. It's evident that it means sports field, pitch, court. And under etymology, we can see that it was loaned from Quechua, an indigenous language. Now, if we click on cancha, we see nothing. Normally, this doesn't happen. It's an indigenous loan word, so chances are it doesn't have any cognates with English or other European languages. Regardless, this method still works out for finding out a word's etymology and meaning. Let's return to the article and search for another word. Here's queda, which means stays. We type it on Wiktionary and see that it comes from the verb quedar, which we click on next. From the etymology description, we can see that it ultimately comes from the Latin quietur, which is where we get the word quiet from. When you're quiet, you're staying the same. With a bit of thinking, it's not hard to see how these two are related. As can be seen, the descriptions are usually brief and bare bone. But what if you want to know more about the history behind said etymologies, because it helps you remember them, or just for fun? Luckily, there's another site for that. SpanishEtymology.com specializes in making connections between English and Spanish words that one would not expect. If I were to ask a Spanish student to give me a cognate of ridiculous, ridiculo would be more than likely the answer. They're not wrong, but as the site's most recent post details, reírse, or to laugh, is another cognate. It gives an explanation of why they're cognates, in this case mentioning the disappearance of D from the middle of words in Spanish. This can be seen with some other words that have passed directly from Latin to English, compared to their Spanish cognates, like credence and creencia, or video, Latin for I see, later turned techno, and veo, Spanish for I see. The site also tags sound changes that I highlighted. There's kl to j, kt to ch, f to p, and many more. Clicking on one brings up a multitude of connections that aren't immediately obvious, like cinco and five, which have the same meaning, but sound completely different. Of course, these are just two of many websites that I talk about Spanish etymologies. There are many others, such as Etymologies Dictionary, Spanish Linguist's great blog, Etymonline, which operates similarly to Wiktionary, then Behind the Name, exclusively for names, amongst even more. I'll link those sites below in the description. As you all can see, there are many ways English and Spanish words are related, even if some of them aren't very obvious. These etymologies have helped me learn many Spanish words, and have facilitated the learning process. I hope they can help you as well. Thanks for watching.